Hello, good morning. Hey, today I would like to talk about the CPI in Australia. 24th of June, the CPI got released. I think it's 4% year over year, minus 0.7% month over month. I think the annual inflation rate is pretty high. I think the target rate is around 2 to 3%. But right now we have like 4% of inflation rate, annual inflation rate, and trimmed mean CPI month over month is 0.4%. I think they get rid of the petrol and food, those high fluctuations, and that'll be trimmed mean CPI. Month over month is a positive growth, 0.4%. In general, I think the May inflation is pretty high. 4%. It's way over. It's literally double the 2% of the target set. So 4% of the CPI. That means the RBA is likely to hold up the high rate, if not even hiring it. I think last rate decision was a hold, so that was a good sign for the homeowners. And we have 4% of the CPI now, and what they're gonna do with it. The food is so expensive. The petrol price has gone down. From last month, but it's more expensive than the last year. Same time. So that's in general, everything is more expensive: food, petrol, services, and also electronics. Electronics has gone up pretty high in pricing. I have been personally looking at some high performance laptop or PC. All those graphic cards has gone up price so much. The graphic card we're looking at is well over $1,500. So that's just for the graphic card. So if you put a PC together, that's somewhere around $5,000 for a PC. So it's really expensive now compared to a few years ago. You can buy a decent performance laptop for like $2,000 to $3,000, but now you're gonna pay for more than that. You're looking at a good laptop with RTX 5080, that kind of graphic card. Yeah, you're looking at well over $4,500. So all those electronics has gone up in price. And the food we go out. We're recently going out for weekend dinners, lunch. Everything has gone up in price. And not many people actually going out for going out for food. The food court that we normally go in is called Shanghai, the old Shanghai. They used to have like well more than 10 food shops in there. They have the Chinese, Korean, Japanese, and burger shop. They have liquor, a bar, that serve the alcohols. But now we go in there, it's only 3 or 4 shops open. The bar was closed, so no more alcohol. And then they only have one Chinese, and then one Vietnamese, and then one burger shop. I think that's it. So yeah, it was pretty sad. And another Vietnamese shop. Pretty sad is my favorite Korean food is gone. So yeah, you have less people to going out to consume, and for them they have to likely to pay for more rent because of the landowners are hiking up the rent, and similarly because the insurance cost and interest rate for them gone up, so they have to adjust the price. And then ultimately the shop owners have to bear the brunt of it. So I think it's have a pretty bad effect on the economy. When if they close their shop, the employees gonna lose their job, and then some of them they use family members, so that'll be a downside. Because people lose their job, what they're gonna do? They have to find some way to get another job, or even worse, they have to they have to rely on the welfare of the society, so that adds on further burden onto the society. That adds on, every other taxpayer have to, you know, looking out for those people who lose their jobs. So ideally, a society is better to have everyone full employment. Everyone's making contribution to the society, and then therefore the government have less tax, so people can have more income in their own pocket, right? If we have so many people relying on the welfare, and then the effect will be people just have to pay more tax for those people who are working. So that'll be discourage them to work, and then the whole productivity gonna go low. The whole inflation goes up that I want to talk about. It's really not about 4%, 4.5%, that sort of percentage wise year over year. I know it's inflation going up, but the inflation has a really bad effect on the society. Is the productivity gonna go low? Inflation goes up, your money gonna worth less, and then the money you make gonna most likely gonna spend on very basic expenditures, for example food, water, and rent. So yeah, when you work, you got nothing left, and then a lot of people who have their job want to find a job who have a better pay, right? Which makes sense. You have to support the family and support themselves. So yeah, and then they might work for a company for quite a few years, and then they have to find another job just because potentially they have a better pay, and then the amount of effort they put to finding another job, that's a lot of effort. It's not straightforward. You can just swap over. So people have to pay attention to the new job, and then put a lot of effort in those kind of transitions. And the old experience for the company, right? You accumulate it over the years, and then all those templates, all those company structures, and the people, and that become kind of like a lot of them, they become useless, right? And then you go to another company, you're gonna pick up another company's template, learn new things, learn the new the relationship with your colleagues. So yeah, in general, it would be good for an employee work for a company for a long time, and because of the inflation drags on, and people have to find another job, right? Go to another company, and then therefore the productivity for this employee is actually going lower. Although the potential the pay that you get is higher, because normally when you change a job, right, you have the past experience, you actually get paid higher, especially in Western societies. You change a job, you have past experience, you get paid more, which makes sense. We used to have friends like this change a job every couple of years, and every time he make a change, get somewhere around $10,000 to $20,000 pay rise. So yeah, so that's the thing. When the inflation goes up, people want to change jobs, and then they're gonna drag down the productivity in the existing company. So the company has to, if an employee change another job, right, and then the employer have to find a replacement, and then they retrain them in the organization. They may take like months for them to actually get familiar with the process of the company, and and then you have to potentially pay more because with the inflation goes up, and then people demand more wage. People from other company move to your company. They expect to pay more. So yeah, there's productivity in general gets lower because you got a new guy or a new lady to work for you, and then they have to spend months to get trained, right? In the process. Well, it depends on what kind of company it is. Some of the company can train only for a few days. Some companies, they just train more. A more complex structure. But in general, you're gonna spend more time to train people. If you get a replacement, and the productivity for the companies get lower, and then the profit for the company it will be lower. If you have like half of those company, they are new employees. That would be problematic, right? And then, of course, comparatively, if you have like 4 employees having here working for like 2-3 years, that and you don't have to train them. They just do their work. That will be good, right? But the thing is, when you have this kind of replacement new employees, the company productivity gets lower, and then the profitability is lower. So the problem is they have less profit, and then they have less money to pay the employee, and then in some cases they just cut the employee. For the bigger company, they just hire less rather than hiring more. So yeah, in general, the employment quality will be lower. The employment, people get less employment. Some people, they just get like part-time rather than full-time, and yeah, this kind of company's profitability is really important. You want the company in general to make money, and then the company make the money. They can pay subcontractors, they can pay their employees, in decent pay, right? And then to match up the inflation. And also, all the suppliers will want more of the pay because of the inflation. They have to, pay their employees more wages because of the inflation and all the material, and they get from other suppliers. Their suppliers, they get more expensive. So from their end, it gets more expensive, and then it gets passed on to the end consumer, and end consumer will become poorer. So the end consumer can be individual, and can also be companies, small companies, big companies. They have to buy things. They have to, to buy either products or services, and then change to make it into another product, right, or services, and pass on to the end consumers. So everything gets more expensive. Then end consumers, they haven't done any better. That's simply because they have more bills to pay. They have like higher rent, higher mortgages, and they have higher petrol prices, and higher electronic prices, and literally everything else. So the money they can spend on your end product is actually much smaller. No matter what you produce, you could be a car manufacturer, you can be a housing builder, or you can be anything, a service provider, or a food truck, a food shop, or massage therapist. So you provide service to your end consumers, and your end consumers are becoming poorer. So when they have limited budget to spend on you, so what are you gonna do? You're gonna cut your price, right, even further. Otherwise, they might change it to another competitor of yours, and they might be lowering your price, and they simply because of the consumers have a lower demand, they have, as I said, they have limited budget to spend. The money in their pocket is lower, so they have to choose around. Before they can just, we have spending in your place for a long time, for years, and now just spending at yours again, right? Because normally if their situation gets better, they would prefer to stay in a place for or get services like consistently. But now my money is getting lower, so they have to shop around, get somewhere cheaper, maybe go to your competitor's place and then get a cheaper price. So and then that's kind of a loop, loop around, look back to the company. That'll be you have a product that have a lower price. Continue to what I said before. The company need to consider the inflation, the cycles, the looping effect of the inflation. So the best way for the company or for the individuals to get around is to improve the productivity. So you improve the productivity, and then you can cut the cost, and then you have a higher profit, and you will be pay your employee more. And then so a good way to improve the productivity is maintain your existing employees, so they keep working here, and rather than you get a replacement employment. That'll be a good idea. And for the personal like situations, you might be worthwhile to improve your own productivity by making more money. And because your existing expenditures has gone up, so for any person it would be good idea to improve their own financial situations. So, and the other thing is to cut cost. You have to cut cost, unnecessary cost, for example going out for food, or overseas travels. And then put the money into your education and have multiple skills, and then you might be able to have a chance to overcome the difficulties in this high inflation time. And by improving your skills, you are more likely to get more paid, in whatever forms. It could be in the company, could be have different jobs, or have like your own setups. And then doing that, is easier for you rather than just holding on to one job and one position, unless it's a high paid job in the government. You become like a politician, you get paid. So regardless of what kind of inflation it is, your pay is always higher. So that's the other thing. The other thing that I want to bring up. People want to work in the government situations when the private sectors are gloomy. We've seen this last decades, right, in the US, New Zealand, and Australia. A lot of people want to work for the public as public servants or politicians, even better. They just simply have a very good pay structure, and then they pay them, and the pay rises could be higher than the inflation rate, and then no matter what the situation is, they always get paid, they always get paid in time, and more is higher than the average people would get paid. For example, in Australia, prime minister can make like $500,000. Doesn't matter what kind of situation it is. They what kind of economy we are in. We are in recession, or people losing their jobs. They keep their jobs, and then they have pensions after the retirement, from the position. So yeah, there's a lot of people, they are moving to public sectors, which is really a brain drain. Also smart people, they move to public sectors. They work for the government, they work for the agencies. So that'll be really interesting for people or any companies to, in this kind of inflationary time. So this kind of inflationary will be lasting for quite a few years, a few more years, because we have more data gonna coming up. In the US, they're gonna have stable coin. The stable coin will be backed by US securities like the bond, and then that'll be more debt gonna get released into the system. It's just not showing up on the Federal Reserve balance sheet. And then so who owns the bond, who owns the debt is everyday people like you and me. We own the stable coin, and then we are the owners of the debt. So there will be more debt, and there will be more inflation, and then the inflation gonna come around to the whole world, especially Australia and New Zealand, 5 other countries. So we normally peg our currencies to the US dollar. Maintain a relatively stable sort of exchange rate. Every country is actually drawing their currency lower as much as they can, and then so in order to maintain this kind of pegging, they have to print their own money. Have their own debt. So that's the thing. When the US doing this kind of debt, release what's that called, Pandora's box. So every other country have to follow. Once they do that, that'll be inflation all over the world. If you look at Argentina, if you look at Zimbabwe in Africa, so these countries are much worse. Because political instability, and the politicians extremely corrupt. And then, yeah, it just gets much, much worse. It prints so much billions of dollars just to buy a bag of rice, a loaf of bread. So that's a really, really problematic. Those countries, the poor countries, become completely, absolutely decimated. In the Australia, New Zealand, these kind of UK, five-hour countries, they only go downhill. So in the next few years, I think people have to be prepared. We as individuals, we need to improve our skill set. Let us be healthy. At least in this kind of gloomy times, we have a healthy body, healthy mind, and then you work on your skill set. Have multiple sources of income. To overcome these kind of difficulties. And for the companies, it will be good for them to restructure in a way that's improve the productivity and efficiencies of the running the business. So there are many ways how to do that. That's completely another topic. How to run successful business. How to be financially independent as individuals. There are many topics covered by many other people in the YouTube. So yeah, you can always find useful information from other sources, but I will cover them in the upcoming videos. Yeah, for now, take care and see you next time.